The year 2 pass catchers. Which ones will break out? Which ones will bust? We're going to try to get to the bottom of it today on Ship Chasing with Pete and Pat. Let's do it. Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your sight.
Jamar. Alpha play chase.
Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally at this point. You're right.
All right, here we go. For a second, Pat, I was like, "Is that a man bun you're rocking?" But it's just the sunglasses, right?
It's the sunglasses, yeah. It's when the hair gets too long. So I'm like, I was wearing sunglasses earlier, now they're on my head, but it's basically just a headband. We're being honest.
I would otherwise have just such jealousy of the San Diego sun pouring through your window right now as I sit here in 25-degree cold in my basement. But I'm going to be in San Diego in a couple of weeks, so I'll allow it. I'll allow it today.
Yeah, it's beautiful here today, man. It's kind of crazy. We were up in Sacramento the last long weekend kind of thing, and it was nice there too. But it is a different kind of beautiful down here.
What were you guys doing in Sacramento?
My cousin lives up there, and so my parents were in town, and we all drove up. And then his mom came in, and so they have 2 little girls. We're super sweet with Vivian, so it's a nice little family trip.
Beautiful.
Yeah, hung out with Sacrilegious. Got to meet Sacrilegious
in
person. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
There you go.
Me and Brittany got lunch with him and his wife. It was a lot of fun.
Beautiful. Yeah, I got to meet Sacrilegious at the Dog Bowl a couple of years back. Always fun to get to put some faces to usernames. Which reminds me again, I'll put out another reminder. If you guys are in the Ship Chasing Discord, we are starting to firm up our plans for a Ship Chasing meetup this summer. We have a survey kind of circulating in the Discord. We're trying to pinpoint, the best weekend to do so. I know there's some landmines within the dates, the FF Expo, etc. But the TLDR is we want to do a meetup that isn't in Vegas. If people still want to go to Vegas, they are obviously more than welcome to. But we've been wanting to mix it up, explore some options, and we have some fun ideas that we're cooking up for a Ship Chasing weekend. So if you guys are interested in that, please fill out that survey, because that's what we'll do or utilize to kind of firm up those details.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I will note with Sacrilegious that we didn't take a picture. If we had, it would have gone the way of Herzig and Leone, with me as Leone.
There you go. Yes, yeah. He's a tall guy. He would have too smalled you.
He would have too smalled me for sure.
There we go. All right. So on ADP Chasing on Monday, I filled in for Pat, and we kind of went through some of the year 2 running backs, specifically looking at the ones who now have, some depressed prices in the ADP landscape, trying to think through which of these guys could bounce back, which of them might be dead to us. And today we figured we would kind of go over the year 2 wide receivers. And Pat, has this been something you've been, thinking about? I know for years, ever since, RotoViz first started kind of releasing their stuff about year 2 breakouts, the year 2 wide receivers for a while were kind of the biggest edge in fantasy sports. Then I feel like it kind of swung to the rookies after that efficiency or inefficiency got shored up by the market.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I've been trying to think through with best ball is the risk that year 2 players come with as well, where they're not I think one of the reasons that we really love year 2 breakouts is from traditional fantasy football, where it's like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But so many of these guys are going to be busts, and we'll kind of rotate and find new guys. And we're only looking for, a few guys who are going to be weekly starters at a high level. So the floor doesn't matter as much in best ball. I learned this the hard way with Traylon Burks. If you spend a 7th round pick on Traylon Burks and he's just a complete bust as a second-year guy, that really, really hurts your best ball teams. But then, of course, JSN, I was somewhat in on last year, but not nearly as in as Gretsch was, and that was a huge hit. So there is the upside. I'm trying to figure out how to balance the fact that with rookies, even the ones who bust sometimes produce at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So it really helps you for I think for best ball, they're more of like a skeleton key, but there's a lot of upside here, and obviously upside is going to win us the top prizes of these tournaments. So we need to be thinking through it.
And I think an even trickier example than, say, JSN, because you could kind of always, there were excuses to be made for JSN relative to what his prospect profile indicated. It's almost like a guy like Quentin Johnston was more of a riddle, where it was like, there were some pretty big question marks. Then he busted, and then he ended up actually producing like a good bit last year. Like, how do you end up on that guy? Maybe you don't.
Well, I mean, I think JSN was interesting, Quentin Johnston was interesting because it was kind of the Dobbins thing, but at wide receiver, we're like, it seems like they're planning on doing this thing that I just couldn't conceive of them actually doing, right? Like, you're really going to have J.K. Dobbins as your lead back after all the injuries he's had, and they like signaled all offseason that was basically their plan, and then they followed through, and they signaled all offseason that like, no, Quentin Johnston, he's going to like have a role for us. So, in a way, Quentin Johnston as a second-year player was almost like the type of hit that like Zay Jones was, as a free agent signing for the Jags in that 1 year, where it's like it was kind of really just a bet on like he has a role. As bad as he's been, he has a role. And I don't know that there's necessarily someone who jumps out like that this year, but that's the kind of the thing with best ball. It's like once a guy gets to a certain level of price, the fact that he has a role is valuable.
Yeah, and there's obviously, just because of how loaded last year was for rookie wide receivers, there are so many levels to this. Like, there are years with a worse draft class where like Jalen McMillan is like the year 2 wide receiver we're most excited about, and he's going to be like the 7th one we talk about today because so many guys smashed in year 1.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to talk about McMillan. Actually raised him up a little bit after looking at the slides. I was like, that seems a little low.
There you go.
Already adjusting. Yeah.
So we'll go through these by kind of their current prices in the ADP market. I think that's the best way to kind of view these. So, first up, we got 3 guys going all in the, top 20 picks of big board drafts right now. Brian Thomas Jr., ADP of 10.3 as the wide receiver 7. Malik Nabers, ADP of 10.9, wide receiver 8. And then Ladd McConkey there, 18.8 ADP, wide receiver 11. We also have here, if you guys are listening to this on audio, shout out to Zach Lenars here, giving us some awesome graphics. We got the leg up rank, points per game, some yards per route run, target share, ESPN receiver score to give us a good snapshot of these guys. I guess to start things off, these are obviously very pricey ADPs. Do any of these strike you as off or, inefficient in any way?
I think the one that we could look back on and think, man, that was a lot to pay, is probably Ladd McConkey. If they bring in like another guy, right? Like if they trade for, there's a rumor of like them trading for Metcalf or whatever a while back. But if they were to add somebody, I think that the market would be a little more skeptical of McConkey. Even if like the Jaguars add someone, I think people are kind of like, it's Brian Thomas's team now. Nabers, very much so. Nabers is more about like, what do we have at quarterback? But they're gonna add somebody. It won't be Daniel Jones. So, it doesn't feel like there's a ton of like off-season like floor for like that where the floor drops out on a Thomas or a Nabers to me. But McConkey is the one where you go, just from a closing line value, you could be losing something there. At the same time, I still really feel like he's a target because he was so good as a rookie. Yeah. And, people don't always like incorporate the playoffs when they look at like yards per route run and stuff, but he had 197 yards and a touchdown in a playoff game. Yeah. Took him up to 2.59 yards per route run. It's just an incredibly efficient season from a rookie. He has good quarterback play. He was really efficient in college. It was just that he was banged up. So to me, this is like kind of Puka-y, and that like you had this guy who had flashed in college but never really put it together. But then he gets in this case, he gets draft capital. Puka didn't. But he comes in an immediate role and is awesome. And I'm just like, I just don't want to overthink this. McConkey is a really good player, plays with Justin Herbert.
Yeah. You know what's funny? For me, of these three, the one that gives me pause, and I actually wrote about this. I did an initial kind of ADP article for Fantasy Life where I was just like 10 surprising ADPs in one way or another. And Brian Thomas Jr. is the one I'm having the hardest time with. Like I'm completely fine with the Nabers and McConkey prices here. But here's my kind of bear case for Brian Thomas at this price. The first being there's so many new variables to this offense this year. First of all, he did a lot of this projection with Mac Jones, which I understand can be a feather in his cap. Hey, he did it with poor quarterback play. We also have a new offensive coordinator. We have a lot of moving pieces as far as he did a ton of his production without Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram in the offense. I know there's rumors that one of those guys might get cut or moved. They obviously could draft someone or bring someone else in, but there was a set of circumstances for Brian Thomas Jr. last year where he was able to enjoy a massive target share, where I think like Ladd McConkey, if we saw Ladd McConkey get the volume that Brian Thomas Jr. did down the stretch, like he would have also have done some insane things from a production standpoint. So I'm just a little worried about some of the moving pieces of Brian Thomas Jr., even though I think he has the talent to be the alpha. Like, I'm not convinced with everything healthy as the offense intends to run, if he's just going to always be a 10-plus target a game guy.
I think that's a very fair criticism of like last year's Jaguars. I just pulled up the first read target rates, and Thomas was at 19%, which is good, but it's not like someone who's dominating. Malik Nabers was someone who's dominating. He was at 24%, and that's where you'll see like, you know, the true number one guys. Thomas was right where Marvin Harrison was, and Harrison was the number two basically on by the first read stuff. He was kind of co-number one with McBride. But so you look at the rookie season and you have a guy that wasn't like a true target dominant alpha in terms of the way the offense was designed, but it's a new offense. I think probably going to be a better designed offense. He's entering year two, and we do tend to see guys who earn targets as rookies get more installed as the primary target in their second season. And the bull case, the way to frame this as a bull case is that like he was earning a lot of the volume that he got, where like Nabers, it was like the offense was designed to run through Nabers as a rookie, which is really cool, but like there's maybe not that much more upside in terms of like how, like what his target per route run can be. Like he's probably capped in terms of target per route run. What we want for Nabers is a more efficient offense. What we want for Thomas is a healthy year from Lawrence and them to actually like lean on him more. And there is room for them to do that. So it is a little bit more of a leap of faith than it is with Nabers for sure. I'm pretty willing to make the leap though. He's just so good.
Yeah. And I should mention, like, I am, I've only done a handful of drafts. Like, he's not like a fade for me. I'm just like, if I'm going to nitpick one of these, it's easier for me to be like, Nabers gets improved quarterback play. We go to the moon. Jim Harbaugh decides to throw just a little bit more. We go to the moon, with Ladd McConkey. Whereas with Brian Thomas Jr., I'm like, we need for what happened down the stretch last year to basically just keep happening to really pay off this ADP.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But I think it could be that plus it's like more intentionally happening. Like he's not just he was out there earning targets because no one else was there. But what we could have is an offense that's just like running through Brian Thomas the way the Bucs was running through Mike Evans to close last season. I will note that we got a Omega King saying Nabers capped, you're insane. I specifically mean that his targets per route run is probably capped. To put that in perspective, he was at 29. He's at 30% rounding up. A 30% targets per route run is like nuts for a wide receiver. That's crazy high. It's not what we want is his yards per target to increase. His yards per target was not that impressive. 1,204 divided by 165. Is 7.3. So it's like kind of his yards per target was like pretty whatever. That's where you go, yeah, because he's playing with like Daniel Jones and all these like backups to Daniel Jones. So what we need from Nabers is honestly probably like a little lower targets per out run and a higher yards per target, and then he could absolutely smash from a production and efficiency standpoint. But yeah, his role in the offense is probably not going to get any bigger because it was already massive to begin with, which is great for a rookie. Like, the fact that he achieved that as a rookie is a super positive sign. Just specifically talking about kind of how we're thinking through the target shares and stuff.
Yeah, and then looking at, just your guys' ranks at leg up, you are right in market with BTJ, with Malik Nabers, and then just a smidge ahead of market on Lad.
Yep.
All right, let's move to this next tier here. This one, there's a lot more interesting stuff to, I think, discuss with these guys. Obviously, the further down the draft board we move, there's going to be more question marks. So we have Marvin Harrison Jr., currently the wide receiver 18, ADP of 34.6. Right behind him, Xavier Worthy, after that scorching hot playoff run. He's the wide receiver 20, ADP of 37.2. And then a player of ship-chasing clip fame here, Odunze, a little bit behind these guys, ADP of 47.4, the wide receiver 26 here. What are your thoughts on this trio, or anyone you want to start with?
Well, I mean, Worthy, we've definitely moved up on a lot after the Super Bowl. It's like that's kind of what we were in the playoff run. Generally, was good for him, but that's like what we were hoping to see. So, and then the other thing with Worthy is that Rashee Rice, I'm a little bit more nervous about his knee injury than I was to like start the big board. I thought it was a clean LCL. It's apparently not. It was a posterior lateral corner, which is like a area of the knee, and it's unclear. Like Breed said, there was damage to that area of the knee. So if Rice isn't fully healthy to start the year, let's say, Worthy, I think, kind of at the very end of the year flashed some real upside that he could take a step forward and become like that true number one for Mahomes. And even if it's like, I don't know if he's going to like run all the routes, but like, do I care? He's the fastest wide receiver in the league. He plays with Mahomes. So maybe there is some more juice here for this offense, and it could come through Worthy. So I think he's someone I'm planning to draft more of than I started.
I was going to say, like, and maybe I'm, too Davis pill, but I mean, I'd take Worthy over Marvin Harrison. I realize they're right next to each other, so that's not like some crazy take. But even if Rice comes back fully healthy, like, I'm kind of just working under the assumption that Rice is going to essentially take over the Travis Kelce targets, or, steal those if Kelce comes back or whatever. And Worthy is just like a genie you can't put back into the bottle. And I think he can win in a lot of places in a way that I'm like really, really excited about what he could do. In the same way we were excited about Rashee Rice after getting slow played by the Chiefs in his rookie year, then crushes through the playoffs. It's like the same thing with Worthy. It was like, if you got 17 games of what he did from week 15 on, I mean, we're talking about a second round pick.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, he when you look at the season long profile, he was at 1.51 yards per route run. Not that great, but it's the fact that he goes for 157 and 2 in the Super Bowl. Obviously, some in garbage time, but like getting behind the entire defense is still nice. He had a nice game against Buffalo, 85 and a touchdown. It was a really, really slow start. So you have him, like you're saying, just kind of be that guy in the second half. It could be huge. I think I would say with this trio that we're getting to the area where we are now starting to have to accept some risk on the player profiles a little bit. Yeah. Obviously, Marvin Harrison was an elite prospect, elite draft capital. So in that sense, his player profile is bulletproof. But, he was like kind of whatever, 1.63 yards per hour, and he faded down the stretch. I was writing the walkthrough for a number of weeks like, hey, like, look at these peripherals. They're actually really strong. And then the following week, I'd have to be like, they're strong. And then they're pretty strong. They're like, well, they're not bad. It's just like he kind of kept getting worse. And the offense was really running through McBride. He's going to have an offseason, to get right with Murray. I'm sure that'll be a focus of what they're doing. But outside of McBride, he doesn't have a ton of target competition, or didn't last year. So if they were to add somebody, Like that would be annoying. I don't know if it would like crush his value, but it would definitely be annoying. Worthy, what if he's like a one-trick pony? Rome Odunze was not efficient as a rookie, and is going ahead of, JSN. Like if he's the JSN, he's kind of been on the JSN path in a way. He had 1.18 yards per hour, and I think JSN was like 1.23. He's the third guy, and the offense struggled more than expected and all that. But we're paying more for his potential breakout than we did for JSN's. I think that makes sense. Like we get Ben Johnson, Keenan's probably gone. I was actually listening to Nate Tice and Matt Harmon talk about how they were thinking that Odunze could maybe get some of like the more intermediate underneath stuff that Amon-Ra gets. And DJ Moore might get some of that more of the Jameson stuff than you might think. So this offensive change could be like massive for Odunze, but
yeah,
he is coming off like a pretty poor season when you look at the efficiency. So it is, as a trio, I think these guys are where you go. Not that like, oh no, these guys stink, but just there were league winners in the round where you took these guys and it wasn't them.
Yeah. And there is, I would say at this portion of the draft, it's a round difference between Marvin Harrison and Rome. You just have a little bit wider of a moat with Rome Odunze. Marvin Harrison at this price, like the more we talk about it, does spook me a little bit. Like if there is a bust here, because I do think the JSN Rome comps are pretty funny, where it's like there are a lot of excuses we could make for Rome in year one, and now things are breaking much, much better for him in year two, where I would not be shocked to see him take this leap. But like you said, we have just introduced the slightest bit of bust risk in like, you didn't smash when given the opportunities in year one. And that doesn't make you a bulletproof prospect in the way we would like you to be.
Yeah, honestly, I think though Harrison's the guy I'm most into, because if you think like who has the upside to where they have like, they're being projected for like a 28% target share, like week after week. It's probably the guy who's drafted 4th overall the year before and is an awesome prospect. And I know he's competing with Trey McBride. And I know Kyler is not a perfect quarterback for the style of receiver that Harrison is. But like, he didn't bomb. He just wasn't amazing. He's 1.63 yards per hour and is like a totally solid veteran wide receiver type season. And in a range where we've seen future superstars start, it's below like where CeeDee Lamb was. I think he was like 1.8 or something, but I think it's like close to where like Metcalf started. It's like there's really good wide receivers have been in kind of this range of efficiency to start their career. And so I'm still, he's kind of the one where I just want to go like back to the prospect profile and just bet on the fundamentals, basically.
Yeah. I just like, to me, it's a lot easier to envision, again, not to hammer the JSN stuff, but to see Rome do to like DJ Moore and, if Keenan's still there, whatever, what essentially JSN did to even Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, because even at the beginning of the year, most of us, even JSN Bulls, couldn't have envisioned him usurping DK Metcalf as the main alpha target earner in that offense. I could see Rome do that over DJ Moore, like in this offense down the stretch, where I feel like Trey McBride is a much bigger roadblock to Marvin Harrison being able to hit that like super gaudy target share you're describing. And I think like Caleb Williams in year two with Ben Johnson is just more exciting to me than what we've seen from Kyler Murray. Like I do feel like the upside with Rome in that scenario at these prices is more intriguing to me.
Yeah, you also, you're getting a cheaper price. That's the other thing with Rome. Wide receiver 28 versus wide receiver 31. I want to wait for the weekend. I'm surprised we're actually behind market on Rome. I do like Rome, so going to revisit that one slightly. But there was a comment from Tyler saying it's kind of pattern matching to JSN. I don't think so. I think the JSN bet was a good bet, one that I was saying not in on enough. And I think it's just like it's the same bet as Harrison. It's like guy went top 10 in the NFL draft. He's like a really good prospect. I didn't think Odunze was like nearly as good a prospect as Nabers and Harrison, but still a good prospect. And he's locked into a really strong opportunity this year. It's easy enough to see how he takes a pretty big leap.
I mean, we can reframe things in a more positive light in that if these guys would have done what we wanted them to do to not have these concerns, they would be 1-2 turn picks, right?
Sure.
Like
For
that
sure.
They would be Brian Thomas and Malik Nabers and Lad McConkey based on where they were drafted, their prospect profile. So they are already getting dinged in an essence for some of those question marks and those dynamics, even
right.
outside their control.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not going to be fading any of these guys. I do feel like just like my gut, if I'm hovering over clicking one of these in a draft right now, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the one that's like, oh boy, I feel like the ground could just fall out.
He feels comfy to me for a weird reason. Like like it's just like, dude, this guy went 4th overall last year, and like I was completely on board. Like I had no real nits to pick with him. I think like kind of a big X receiver who doesn't get a ton of separation, but is like really savvy, is like kind of a bad fit for Kyler Murray, unfortunately. Like that's he's probably going to be limited by the situation. It's a run first offense. So it's definitely, I could see it like not working this year, but this is a player who I'm going to be like pretty comfortable betting on anytime he's like around the 3-4 turn. Like just like over the course of this guy's career, like that's how good of a prospect he was. Like even though he wasn't awesome as a rookie, it's just like I feel like one of these years he's going to be an absolute smash at the 3-4 turn. Like if you just keep letting me have that, I'm going to get paid off like in a big way at some point. So
I think for
maybe it's not this year, but I'm still into it.
I think for me too, it's a little of just the watch the tape element of just like us never seeing the dynamism we wanted from him. Just that when you watched Malik Nabers down the stretch last year and you're just like, holy fucking shit, this guy is just playing on another level. And you're like, if a few things go differently with quarterback player off, it's like literally the sky's the limit. Where Marvin Harrison Jr., it's like we were watching cut-ups of this guy like, running so slow and just like, if we're gonna really distill it down, like didn't seem like he had that dog in him. And like that's the kind of stuff I'm like, does he want it, man? I've turned into a film bro on Marvin Harrison Jr. is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but remember the week after he's so slow was when he like went for like 18 points in a quarter or whatever. Like I think he's not the most aesthetically pleasing wide receiver I've ever seen. I'll give you that, but he clearly does some things well.
And the one thing you can't deny about any of these guys, like when we're talking about downside, it doesn't mean it's coming at the expense of the upside, right? Like I think the upside scenarios for all of these guys are undeniable. It's just which one of these guys has a lower floor than the others, because once we're past, those, first top 3 guys, like there are more question marks introduced here to the
Worthy has the lowest floor, right?
I don't know. Why?
Because he's not like he's a small speed receiver who didn't produce for most of the season, and what if Rice is totally fine and is like the go-to wide receiver for Mahomes, and Worthy's just like not getting open consistently, or he's dealing with drops like he did as a rookie when he finally gets like, are we drafting? Is it the Jameson Williams bet, but at pick 37, that kind of thing?
My counter would be that like when the flip was switched for his opportunity, his stretch from week 15 to the Super Bowl was better than either of Marvin Harrison Jr.'s or Rome's season in the aggregate. Like if you just compared that slice to these 3, like on paper, like you would want Xavier Worthy's. And I'm just saying like now you can't put that toothpaste back in the tub, there after he's done that, the tube.
Yeah. Brett's saying he's got, rushes and they're going to force in the ball. I think that's probably true that he'll like have, design stuff and then I'll kind of keep the floor, but I don't think the floor is like horrible on any. I think the floor's opportunity cost is like really like where it comes into play, so it's more of like, is he a wide receiver 3 Because if he's a wide receiver, is it we get waddled? That's the downside. It's like he's still going to go in like the 6th round next year. I think for all these guys, this is probably true. Like they're not going to fall outside the top 10 rounds or something. It's just that like by the end of the year, you're like, I don't think I'm starting this guy in redraft.
I just think what's exciting to me about Worthy, and I don't think you would necessarily disagree or anything, is just that he beat the allegations of like, oh, you're just a speedster, you're just this big play guy. And people who actually understood his prospect profile knew that wasn't the case, but like that was still how he was kind of being pigeonholed. And then you saw them using him like all over the field in a variety of ways. And you're like, oh shit, like this is a guy that you're going to give end rounds to, also play deep and manufacture the short stuff at the line. It was like, now he has the whole package with one of the best offenses in football.
Yeah, and then I think in that sense he probably has the highest ceiling. I think I'm just not completely sold on Worthy the player, but if he is that guy, he could be Mahomes' number 1. And then like the idea that you were getting him at 37 is really silly.
Well, and you do get the Rashee Rice, and I guess you could say it goes in both directions. If Rashee Rice returns and is the alpha, and then Kelsey comes back and still is siphoning off a little bit, maybe you start to experience more of that downside. But you also get the Rashee Rice stuff never comes together like he flashed his rookie year, and then it's like, holy cow! Like you said, he should just be a 2nd round pick in that scenario.
Omega King's trolling me again, saying it's because I have take lock with Rice. Rice is not a target for me right now, so I don't know. I don't know. You're
turning it into Evan Silva with letting the trolls get to you in the chat.
Omega King is trolling me real good.
I got to be like Levitan telling you not to read the chat. No, I appreciate all you guys in the chat today, and I see you. All right, let's head to this next slide. This is kind of a long tier just as far as how we condensed it on this graphic, because we're going to go all the way from ADP 77.7, Jalen McMillan, roll the clip, all the way to Jalen Coker at 153. But our other guys in here, Ricky Pearsall, not too far behind Jalen McMillan, ADP of 84.2. Keon Coleman has fallen all the way to 112.8 as the wide receiver 55. And then Coker's teammate there, 20 or so picks ahead of him, Xavier Leggett. Let's start with McMillan, our guy here. It was looking slow going. Lots of whispers around the ship chasing universe about the curse being in full effect. And then all of a sudden, man, Jalen McMillan just exploded production-wise down the stretch.
Yeah, he was really fun. My concern for McMillan this offseason has had nothing to do with him. It's about, do they bring back Chris Godwin, who was a free agent, but they've been trying to re-sign him. They can't franchise tag him now because they did something where they like moved his void year to extend the window with, they have, I think, until the 12th, March 12th to negotiate a long-term deal now. But by extending that deadline, they now can't franchise tag him. So it's like going to be all or nothing. They either get a deal done or he's a free agent. If they get a deal done, it does feel kind of expensive to me. He wasn't like amazing. He had 1.22 yards per route run, productive down the stretch, but Godwin was out. And it was still Evans' offense. So it's about like, if we're figuring out whether or not to target him right now, I'm trying to dial in how likely is Godwin to return. Seems like less likely than he was, given that the franchise tag is off the table and they still haven't reached a long-term deal. So that's why I moved him up a bit, kind of more in line with ADP, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like, are people thinking about that? Like that he could be the number 3 wide receiver there?
I was just thinking about this too. And I see a couple people in the chat, Tyler mentioning him being a fade. And I think I do agree just median projection wise, but I guess if I'd offer a counter, and we have been willing as underdog drafters to, make a similar bet for other players, it's, you attach yourself to a really good offense that just in general is going to have a high weekly ceiling, and that pie is going to be big. And then the second thing, the contingent upside would be very real again. If a Mike Evans or a Jalen McMillan gets hurt, all of a sudden, like if you knew one of those guys wasn't going to play the whole year, Jalen McMillan's probably going around pick 50. You know what I mean? So like, I do think there is upside on this price, even if the downside is if all things remain static, he's probably slightly overvalued.
But see, I don't think it pick 50 the year he had, I would be out. If it's him and if it's Evans and, are you saying it's just like Evans and him, Godwin's gone?
Evans and him or Godwin and him.
Yeah. I would be out at that price. I don't think he wasn't, the pedigree wasn't high enough, and what he did as a rookie wasn't impressive enough for me to take him at that price. I think he's more of like a 7th round type of value, but that's where he's going now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's you got Ricky Pearsall, who in a lot of ways it kind of similar to the McMillan stuff. As far as similar, how he flashed, right? When he flashed, yeah.
Really good down the stretch. 141 yards and a touchdown in week 17. We love that. 69 yards and a touchdown in week 18. So, he didn't do a ton overall, but it was, right at the end, he came alive. Has 1.31 yards per route run per PFF, and it's pretty similar to McMillan, except Ayuk has this multi-ligament knee injury. Debo's probably getting traded. And so you've got Juwan Jennings, Kittle, and Pearsall, very likely is the top 3 weapons to start the year. And then, were he to take another step, I don't know that Jennings is good, but I don't know he's like a clear alpha. Ayuk, who knows, coming off the injury. If Debo doesn't get traded, then all of a sudden it gets pretty crowded and Kittle's good. So it's not like as clean. It's not like a super clean upside case, but it's like he's not blocked from just being like a really solid kind of wide receiver 2 in fantasy, like a fantasy wide receiver 2 at this price, which I think is pretty fun.
And to go back to kind of a similar argument for McMillan, you do get the similar contingent upside we've seen in this Niners offense over the years. When one of those big 3 or whatever is out, even when CMC's out, there's a very big volume uptick for the other guys. And this is a popcorn offense. This is one that'll spread it around. There's the Kittle week, there's the Debo week, there's the Ayuk week. You can be the spike week in this offense where they're willing to spread it around. And Ricky Pearsall's game just lends itself to that, right? He's going to be the big play down the field guy. I mean, I think when you're setting up Niners stuff, he's just going to be a screaming target. And once we get the schedule, and you're looking at stuff, it's just anything that gives you any San Francisco level correlation, Pearsall at this price is going to be a slam.
I really like him at this price. I think early on when I was drafting, I would get sniped on him, and there was some love in the chat for him, as I'm in these drafts, and it's you kind of think hey, yeah, why am I not just drafting this guy right after Jennings, And there's not really a great case not to. I think especially because his early season outlook looks pretty strong. Even if they keep Debo, he's the wide receiver 3, probably the outside wide receiver 2. He's the most traditional of the wide receivers, with Jennings kind of more of a slot guy. So it's the Ayuk injury. I don't think Ayuk's going to hit the ground running week 1. Maybe plays, but there should be opportunity early in the season. And then we get to see what Pearsall really is. He was a 1st round pick, and the 49ers have been pretty good with their wide receivers. And sometimes with profiles where I'm huh, really? Okay. But it's Debo, Ayuk, and Pearsall had elements to his profile that made me kind of keep an open mind. He was a pretty good route runner. He won really well in the intermediate area of the field. So I'm definitely intrigued by his upside in the sense of I don't see him smashing, being a true alpha, but being part of that offense, like you're saying, where they're generating spike weeks, and he's a part of that. I guess another note would just be I came away from last season pretty impressed with Brock Purdy. Their system kind of broke down, and he was still very efficient. His time to throw spiked. He's running around trying to make plays. Like he was the exact opposite of a button pusher. He was actually like a playmaker, and it worked. And so if the offense kind of gets back on track, I have a lot of faith in kind of this passing game. I think it's a very kind of high floor passing game.
Here's a question for you. How much of Debo leaving do you think is priced into this Ricky Pearsall ADP? Because I do think the market, if your answer is yes, I think they'll double count it when Debo does officially leave. Ricky will naturally move up some.
I don't think a lot of it's priced in. It's kind of the opposite of the Godwin thing, where like if
Okay.
Godwin were to get re-signed, I think people would be like, that sucks. And then I think if Debo gets traded, I think it'll crystallize for some people. It's not that like people don't know, but like there's probably a couple drafters in your room who don't know, and they'll have to. They'll then know. And so it'll just be. I think you're going to get sniped on Pearsall a little bit more if Debo gets traded.
Before we talk about these Panthers guys, shout out to the chat. We got Coach Speak Index in here who paid some individuals dressed as pirates to help break the ship chasing curse and is claiming success here. I'll just say, Greg, we need him to do it again because people will be in our mentions if he busts in year 2 saying the curse is still alive and well. So we need the year 2 breakout to continue. And our guy Tyler here gifted the YouTube membership. It looks like Brian was the recipient there. Brian, be sure to hop in the Deposit Kingdom Discord. Links down below. You sync your YouTube account in your Discord account. There's instructions in the FAQ on how to do that. And then you can join our lovely ship chasing community.
Question for Brian. Is this a typo or is it supposed to be pronounced like hail? Like, is that how we get the hail?
I think it's a Southern tribute to Tyler.
Okay.
Hell yeah, Tyler. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hail.
There you go.
I like it. I like it as a pronunciation guy.
All right. Our last ones in this tier 3, and you'll notice the subhead here for the Coke heads. I got badgered in my first stream about, am I a Coke head? Am I a Coke head? I did end up taking Jalen Coker on one of my first 2 big board drafts, but we got Leggett here at 130, Coker at 153. I mean, it's hard for me to quibble with either of these prices. Loved what I saw from Bryce Young at the end of last year. Like, I want to be clicking both of these guys. Are you with me on that?
Yeah, I mean, Leggett scares me like a little bit more because I don't think he wasn't like a great prospect, and you're kind of like drafting the draft capital with him, which I'm down to do in year 1 because you're going to get the guy out there and doing stuff. But if he's not good, the draft capital like won't protect you as much. And Leggett didn't really flash that much to me. He's better than Jonathan Mingo, but
that's a low bar.
Yeah, it's a low bar. Coker, I'm more excited about. Coker was good. 1.72 yards per outrun. It's possible they bring back Thielen, but I think Coker can play outside. He's 213. He's 6'3", 213. So he was 61% of his snaps were in the slot, but I don't think he's like limited to being a slot guy. And I'm impressed that he was like got on the field, started producing, was not a part of their plans. It was UDFA. So he's the guy that I'm probably more interested in, and yet is cheaper. So you can see in our leg up ranks, we have him right behind Leggett, but Leggett's going like 23 picks earlier.
Yeah, just for frame of reference here for the people listening in audio, leg up 5 spots behind on McMillan, 3 spots ahead on Pearsall. Oh, and we skipped over Keon Coleman. That's my bad. We'll circle back to him in a second. And Leggett slightly behind and then ahead on Coker. Yeah, I guess my thing too is I just don't want to be too precise with an offense that I think represents like a really exciting like backstack type of offense where you get Bryce Young, grab these guys, almost similar to kind of how like a lot of us talked ourselves out of Quentin Johnston even at those cheap prices last year, where it's like you're just betting on Justin Herbert being undervalued this offense, and if they get going, probably a bunch of them are going to benefit from it. But I certainly get the cost differences between those two.
Yeah, but I mean, the Johnston price would be more the Coker price than the
Right.
Leggett. This is kind of where Leggett was going last year, which I thought was too low, and I was taking him. But now it's like like if you think about like if Legett's not very good this year, when is he most likely to produce? And it's like probably early in the season. Whereas last year it was like, well, it'll still probably be out on the field late in the season. They're going to see what they have, and all that. So looking at like which of these players am I like, do I just like kind of gun to my head which guy do I think is actually good? It's Coker.
Yeah.
So I do really like that he's the cheaper of the two. But if you're getting the discount on Leggett, the rankings advice is basically take that discount, mix in Leggett. To your point, don't get overly precise, but Coker's just an easier click.
The couple people in the chat talking about the Panthers drafting a wide receiver. I guess I would say, aren't these guys are pretty much priced as ancillary wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3s anyways. Like there's room in this offense for a guy to be drafted at like pick 50. Like if they drafted Tet McMillan, I don't, that's not going to happen or whatever. But I'm like, I think I would still like these guys around these prices,
Yeah, Tet McMillan would be a bummer for these guys. I think he's like but he has the potential to be like a true number one. And kind of in a possession receiver way. Like he can win deep and stuff too, but what you get really excited is that he's like in kind of the Drake London mold, or like a much more dynamic like Michael Pittman kind of guy. And that the juice there is kind of his ability to consistently earn targets. So that would really hurt the other wide receivers. Especially because I don't think this is going to be a really high volume passing game. They're going to lean on Chuba Hubbard. The run game's like a big part of what they do. And while Young showed a lot
air it out more down the stretch they didn't really have a choice.
They were bad. Yeah, they were kind of bad though. Yeah.
Yeah. I could just still see a lot of like negative game script, forced to throw, Bryce Young run around, hair on fire type of games.
Oh, for sure. But I just, with McMillan just stealing a big piece of the pie I still think would be. He's the only one though. He's the only one. This wide receiver class doesn't have like Egbuka's looks like a pretty good target earner, but like not, I don't think at the ceiling level of like a Tet McMillan. And like Burden is almost more like one of his red flags is you might have to manufacture stuff for him. And so if you're like out there just earning targets as Jalen Coker, that's probably still going to be fine. So I'm not like super worried about the draft additions.
I had accidentally skipped over here as we were going in reverse order of ADP of Keon Coleman here. His ADP 112, the wide receiver 55. You guys are slightly ahead of market at wide receiver 53. I don't even know what to think about Keon Coleman. He's like one of these guys I kept playing in the daily contest throughout the playoffs, like wanting more. And then it's like, well, I guess it's just another Mac Hollins week. Oh, it's Curtis Samuel doing it. Like, there's definitely a ton of bust risk here. So how do you feel about Keon?
He is a tough click.
Yeah.
Like this is, to me, he's like the most like eat your vegetables. Probably him and Leggett. They're like the two eat your vegetables guys where it's like he was a second round pick. He got on the field right away. He wasn't bad. The numbers I have for him are 1.55 yards per out run. So that, it's a significant difference than 1.94, but it's still not bad. But man, it feels lower just like having watched the games, doesn't it? It's like hard to like, what's his upside in this role? This role sucks. I don't know if I was listening to him or somewhere Matt Harmon shared that he was like kind of like, this is exactly what I was hoping would not happen to Keon Coleman. Like he's like playing like traditional X. They're kind of sacrificing him to the defense, it feels like a little bit. And that like he doesn't separate. Like that's the red flag that he had coming in. Like this dude doesn't really separate well. So let's have him like line up on the outside and have him be like a Michael Gallup. It's just like really hard to, but Michael Gallup had a really nice second season, actually, so it's possible. I think he's, especially if you're part of it is for me. I don't know about you. I'm not really drafting much of Josh Allen on these elite quarterbacks right now. So I'm not coming around and like needing to stack him up. If I had more Allen, I think he wouldn't feel like a tough click at all. He'd be a target.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I mean, like the upside scenario, I remember last year in the preseason, and I don't know if it was just like a single training camp video that circulated, but it was like, the beat reporters were like, they're manufacturing looks for him in the red zone. Like, and I remember the comp I gave in my head is like, oh, could he be the Kelvin Benjamin? Where he's like, he's not that good, but they just force feed him targets in the red zone, and he's bigger than these DBs and more athletic, and he scores 8 touchdowns. Or something. And it's like the Bills do so many funky things in the red zone. Like they were not drawing up plays for him when they got down there. So I'm like, yeah, what is the upside when Mac Hollins is routinely looking better than you out there?
Yeah, it's but I mean, we talk about like the Quentin Johnson thing. Like he fits with that, where I don't think okay, so they draft Dalton Kincaid in the first round. And for what they were hoping he would be, he is a bust. Like that didn't work, Like he's like a functional starting tight end. That's fine. It's not like he can't play, but like that didn't work. And the Keon Coleman things looks like it didn't work either. But Hollins is a free agent now. They still have Samuel under contract. Shakir looks solid. Like that's your best pick there. He was a day 3 guy, right? Round 4, I think. But like with the Bills, what they probably should do is just take another receiver. But do they, given how much they've already invested in the position? So it could be where like it's possible there's less target competition. Like Amari Cooper's gone, Mac Hollins is gone, and we're actually rolling back like what we had last year without really anyone else that's going to get in the way. And in that sense, it does feel pretty Quentin Johnson-y. It's like, really? Like you're just going to throw to Keon Coleman this year? That sounds bad, but like, what if they do?
Yeah. It was almost like this year was their like version of the Chiefs, like let's do it on our road year, where it's like we have, we're throwing to Sky Moore and Mecole Hardman in the Super Bowl. And I do wonder if they just kind of start doubling down like the Chiefs did. It's like, we're going to take Rashee Rice, we're going to take Xavier Worthy. Like maybe they do take another stab on a wide receiver with some decent draft capital.
One thing I'll say with Coleman, so talking about the first read targets and stuff. So Marvin Harrison, I mentioned earlier, was at 19%, sharing that with Brian Thomas, and you're hoping for him to be then more efficient in year 2, in terms of maybe he's a bigger part of the offense, maybe not, but like you want him to be more efficient. He's already got a big piece of the offense carved out. And to your point with Harrison, that like maybe creates bust risk at his price because he already had the role. So like there's not that lever for him to like jump into a much bigger role. We talked about Odunze and Xavier Worthy. Rome was at 11% first read target rate, Worthy at 12. So there's like a lot of potential in year 2. Like if they jump up to where Harrison was in terms of like being a big part of the way the offense is designed, that could be a huge jump for them. McMillan was at 10%. If Godwin goes, that should rise considerably. Pearsall was at 11. That could be much higher, especially, if Ayuk and Debo aren't there to start the year. Keon Coleman was at 13%. So he does have like, even as much as he was out there, the offense wasn't really designed with him in mind. Now that's both concerning, but it creates a path for upside where it's like, all right, he's just like a bigger part of what they're looking to do every week. We probably need him to show more than he showed last year, but he wasn't terrible. 1.55 yards per hour. And it's like, it's in the range where you could see them being like, look, we need this dude to step up, and we're designing the offense like he's going to. So, let's bet on that.
It might be one too of kind of seeing how the draft shakes out on him, because you could certainly see his ADP fall like into the Leggett range if they add somebody.
If they like add Matthew Golden, I'm like out. If you have like Shakir and Golden, I think he's just going to be at sacrifice to the defense.
You could wait to get your Keon Coleman shares in playoff best ball next year. He can be your showdown Super Bowl piece.
Yeah.
If you guys missed ADP chasing on Monday, you can check that out. I subbed in for Pat, and we talked about the year 2 running backs. Pat, I assume you'll be back in the saddle with those guys on Monday.
I'll be back in the saddle. Yeah, thanks for filling in.
Yeah, no problem. And we might have some programming shifts on ADP chasing. We want to find a time during the week where Shope isn't beholden to a 1 hour schedule, having a hard out with some of his other stuff. So
not this week. You guys went for almost 2 hours.
Yes,
there were comments in the chat.
To be. Yeah.
Oh,
that was fun. Yeah, and if you guys are new around here, that at least for now, our programming schedule. Monday's ADP chasing at 11:45 noon Eastern after Best Ball Breakfast on my channel. And then we'll be doing the Thursday afternoon ship chasing with Pat and myself. We're going to get some guests swinging by here. We always like getting some, dynasty focused guests around this time of year. Yeah. So we'll be sure to get that rolling, but we'll be here every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you guys subscribe. And we also have the audio feed, of course, if you guys need to listen to us on the go. All of those episodes get posted there. Let's keep moving here and get down to some of these late flyers. We got Jordan Whittington, ADP of 167, 80 Mitchell, 187 ADP. And then we got a couple of Broncos guys, Troy Franklin, ADP of 200, and Devon Vele, another Bronco here, 233.6. Looks like you guys are pretty behind market on Whittington, ahead on 80, ahead on Franklin, and slightly ahead on Vele. We covered a little bit of the Whittington steam on Monday, most of it just stemming from these Cooper Kupp rumors. It seems like you guys are kind of not buying that, at least with this rank.
Yeah, talk to me about Whittington. Are you in?
Not really. I honestly hadn't given him much thought. There seems to be a lot of community wish casting on him. He was who everyone wanted to be the next Puka at the end of draft season last year, flashed a little bit. And now it's if this volume opens up, if Cooper Kupp's not there, surely he'll take it over. So I understand the enthusiasm, but I don't know if I saw enough of him to get really excited about it.
He did have 2.46 yards per route run. That's pretty great. It was only on 124 routes. Kind of struggled to get out on the field. One thing that I did not like with him is that there's that stretch where they don't have Puka and Kupp and everything, and I think he may have missed some time in that stretch as well. But whenever they needed a dude to step up, it felt like it was more Tutu. When you put Tutu Atwell on the field, that dude is kind of good. But he's so small.
Summer, dude.
Yeah, seriously. But he, I think they don't really want to play him that much. But then whenever they do, he steps up. Whittington's most productive games and his biggest playing time by far was really early in the season. So weeks 2, 3, 4, and 5. He had 13, 10, 31, and 41 routes, 2, 3, 8, and 10 targets. He had 0 targets in the wild card round, 1 target in the divisional round, total of 7 routes run. Kupp was washed by then. I don't know. It feels like a little we're anointing him.
Yeah.
As he's the dude who will be taking over this role. I'm not sure that he will be. Post draft, post free agency, if he's in line, I'm down. I'll pay this price and higher. But I don't know, man. It's such a concentrated offense. So
yeah.
if it's not him, if he's not the secondary guy, if it's some other guy, if it's a guy they draft, if it's a guy they add in free agency, whatever, then it just feels like this, Whittington, you're hoping for 1 spike week all season.
Yeah.
Which, isn't crazy at 165, but it's not, I don't know.
That's the thing, that the counter argument to any FUD on any of these guys we're going to talk about
so
is
cheap.
they're all in a range where ADP ceases to matter. Sacrilegious has done a lot of work on this. I mean, we're talking about a late 14th round pick to Jordan Whittington. I mean, it's true dart throw territory there. And I would say, like, traditionally these wide receivers, and I'm pretty interested in AD Mitchell and Troy Franklin too. Like, these are the second year bets you want to be making, right? Where the market isn't frothy for them. You're not paying just like, oh, year two player could break out kind of tax. The market's basically discarded these guys, and for pretty decent reasons. But man, I'm excited about AD Mitchell and Troy Franklin at these prices.
Yeah, I mean, they were well, Mitchell had like legit draft capital, some real holes in his prospect profile, but I mean, some real holes in his game, you'd say. He's kind of your Dontavian Wicks, I think, where he's like, dude can earn targets whenever he's out there, but he's also the wide receiver 4, and probably will continue to be the wide receiver 4. So at this price, I think he's pretty good. If he gets steamed up as like a Wicks style hype candidate, I'm going to leave him behind. Franklin, I don't know, man. Like he wasn't very good. He wasn't drafted that high. But he can win deep, and Bo Nix is good. And I do have some Bo Nix, so I'm kind of stacking him a little bit. It's possible that Vele's the right answer though. And he's significantly cheaper.
I think Vele is probably the better bet to just give you more consistent production, hit your lineup more weeks. I mean, the counterpoint to the Troy Franklin stuff is like, this was one of the youngest players in the league last year, really good prospect profile. And we just saw Marvin Mims like literally take 30 games to really start to get used, and then was like the guy you would have loved to have on your team in week 16, just absolutely, week 16 absolutely exploded there. So I could see a similar arc for Troy Franklin, where one day Sean McVay realized like, oh yeah, this guy is really fast, and I should maybe use him downfield a little bit more. I think in the same vein that we're kind of talking about the Panthers stuff, like if you're paying that price on Bo Nix, and we're obviously not doing quarterbacks, but it's kind of a pricey cost for Bo Nix. Like, I'm going to be wanting to backstack him with these guys.
So in the chat, we've got Coach Speak Index is here, and we're getting quotes from the Coach Speak Index, but not from him, from Tyler. Tyler is quoting Coach Speak Index.
Courtesy of Coach Speak Index, and then Greg. He's unleashed these AI agents to drop his nuggets in various fantasy football chats around the interwebs.
But this is pretty bullish. The Witt is a tough dude. He's getting more and more comfortable playing in this league. He's smart. He picks it up. He's made the right stuff. His role will likely just kind of increase as he just gets more and more acclimated to this unit and the NFL football and NFL football in general. That was from the OC. And then Tyler noting McVay has some comments, has done well with the reps he's had at receiver. Thought he played well as a receiver early on. And I've been really proud watching him grow. That seems good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe the Rams really are gonna, lean on him more next year.
Yeah, and again, like to zoom out, as we go through these slides, like your room for error on these guys gets wider and wider and wider, right? Like the price you're paying, the opportunity cost is so much smaller, and as a cohort, these year 1 and year 2 guys still represent the best chance to smash their upside of basically any other cohort in the player pool.
Yep.
All right, let's go to some of the super deep flyers here. Rest in peace, Jalen Polk, ADP of 239. Malik Washington here, who leg up has not even deemed worthy of a rank. Same with Roman Wilson here. Jermaine Burton, who has more of a rap sheet than he does catches, it seems like at this point. Any thoughts on these guys? We also have some very special honorable mentions to the side. Christian McCaffrey's brother, Malachi Corley, Devontae Walker, Javon Baker. Any of these guys worth a last round dart in the big board?
Do you have the slide? No.
Which slide? Oh, sorry. I was looking at my, I had it on, sorry.
Oh.
I had it on my other screen in the downloaded PowerPoint and forgot to tab over.
It's over for Polk. Dude was an absolute disaster. It's just not happening. 0.38 yards per out run. I'm not even going to double check that number. I'm just going to assume it's correct.
Hilarious.
Yeah. It's so bad. He was just like, he refused to take accountability for how bad his season was, saying he has the best hands in the league after all these stupid drops. Like, come on, man. The GM was like, or whatever their title is, because I don't even think he's officially the GM. By the way, I did double check it. It's lower.
It's lower.
It's 0.35. It's lower.
Wow.
That's PFF has it. God. So they're like, they were dreaming, the Patriots fans dreaming about T. Higgins. That's not gonna happen. If Chris Godwin hits the open market, they're going after him. They'll give like, I heard you guys talking about $15 million to Amari Cooper, which sounds insane. Well, not if the Patriots are out of options. They'll do it. This team is desperate to add weapons, and when you look at mock drafts, generally you were seeing them get like Will Campbell at 4, or maybe one of the 2 blue chip defensive guys falls to them, or they would go for like a Mason Graham or something like that. But I do think that there might be a little bit of a drumbeat for Tet McMillan. By the way, I think it's T-Mac. He likes being called T-Mac.
Okay, that's easy for us content creators.
Yeah. So T-Mac, there's a little bit of a drumbeat from some of the evaluators that he really is worth the 4th pick. So I would not be surprised at this point if they just like take care of the line. Like if you're thinking about the Patriots offseason, it's starting to look like they could maybe take care of the line a little bit more easily in free agency, and then just take T-Mac at 4. Mm-hmm. And that's how they take care of receiver. They're obviously they're so bad at receiver though, they're going to need to add some other guys. All this to say, I don't know what Polk's opportunity is in year 2, because he couldn't really get on the field in year 1. To close the season, he had 6 combined routes in the final 2 weeks. 8 combined routes that he didn't play in week 18. I don't even know why, but that's not great. He was just bad. He had from weeks so he had 4 games that he played from week 13 through the end of the season. He totaled 0 yards in those 4 games. 0 yards. He was targeted twice. I don't know. It's
sad.
It's over, I think. Roman Wilson, when a guy doesn't get on the field at all,
when the beat reporters don't want to acknowledge your existence.
Yeah, beat reporters basically acted like he wasn't there in the summer, which was really weird until the Steelers coaches did the same thing during the season. Malachi Corley is maybe a smidge interesting because you got a new coaching staff. You got a coaching staff that's coming from a team that likes designed plays as much as anyone in the league. So maybe they could get some yak stuff going for him. After Garrett Wilson, who wants to be traded, they don't have any other receivers. Adams is going to get cut, intentionally getting cut. He's due $40 million. So now that Rodgers isn't there, he won't renegotiate that deal. He'll be on his way. Lazard gone. Mike Williams already gone. So Corley, I think maybe I'm not really drafting him, but he's kind of someone I would keep my eye on as someone you could potentially draft later. Yeah.
And wouldn't you say from kind of a macro standpoint with all of these guys, one of the biggest things we want to be doing right now is avoiding zeros, drafting this early, not taking on the unnecessary risk. These are all watch list guys, really buzzy off season. Okay. All right. Maybe things will be different this year. Start feathering them in. Don't necessarily need to take on the risk this early.
No, I have drafted Burton, but it feels horrible. When you draft Jermaine Burton, in a lot of ways, I think T. Higgins is going to be a Bengal for a long time because of how bad Jermaine Burton is. Like if Burton and Badditt doing the work of playing receiver, he's actually out there. He is pretty talented, but if Burton sees the opportunity he was given, then maybe Joe Burrow wouldn't have learned the cap. He wouldn't be a part-time GM talking about void years on Pardon My Take. He's he's changed. Burton has changed the course of Joe Burrow's hobbies. So he talk about a zero risk. I mean, this guy could be out of the league by this time next year.
Yo, for sure. If you're selecting Jermaine Burton, you better come in with open eyes about what that range of outcomes is. Let's quickly hit on the tight ends here. As the slide says, one of these is not like the other. Brock Bowers, the uber smash of all uber smashes. His ADP 17, leg up ahead of market on him by a few spots. And then we go all the way down to Jatavian Sanders, Ben Sinnott, never forget that fake play in the playoffs, and Theo Johnson. Not much we need to say about Brock Bowers right now. I guess I'm more interested on these three later guys. Any of them interesting to you?
Well, I'm surprised Bowers isn't a little higher. So, I'll say that. I thought he'd be like 1-2 turn. Yeah. I love where he's going. He's a smash.
I did my I told you I'd only done like a couple of my big board lives, but because that war room was about to fill, I hopped in 4 of the slows or whatever to max that. And I think I've taken Bowers in 3 of mine. Like I'm just vacuuming him up.
Love it. I think these tight end picks are kind of dangerous, even Sanders, because when we get to Best Ball Mania, we're going to get to the 18th round, and, Jatavion Sanders is going to be sitting there. He's like, I didn't have a great season, but he's the Panthers starting tight end. He's a totally fine guy to add. And I'll be completely on board then. But, it was a day 3 pick. Wasn't particularly impressive. And I don't really get it, but the NFL is psyched about this tight end class. So I get it from Warren and Colson Loveland. That's not what I mean. But, they're really into Elijah Arroyo. I think he probably goes 2nd round. They're really into Mason Taylor. He could go 2nd round, probably 3rd, but could be 2nd. Harold Fannin is going to go day 2, I think. He was super productive. I'm actually pretty excited. I would love for an NFL team to get excited about him. But then you also hear some love for Terrence Ferguson and Gunnar Helm. It would not be surprising if the Panthers spent a 3rd round or 4th round pick or even 5th round pick on a tight end. And then you have to worry about, if they spent a 5th round pick on Gunnar Helm, I'm not confident that Sanders, and they kind of ran a committee last year at tight end for at times. So yeah, man, this could be 55% route participation from a player who wasn't very efficient last year. I just think let's just wait or take those rookies. Take Arroyo, because at the very least, even if they're in a part-time role, they should be coming on down the stretch. And you just have the mystery box element where it's possible Elijah Arroyo's really good. It's possible. Yeah. It's definitely possible Harold Fannin's really good. He just broke the receiving record to tight end.
Yeah. Yeah, most of these guys kind of fall in the same bucket as, the wide receivers on the last slide, where there could be a time and place to take these guys, but probably just taking on too much unnecessary risk this early in the offseason. If you just take Brock Bowers, like I do in every draft I can, then you don't really have to worry about these guys too much.
Yeah. Although I am drafting more 3 tight end, even if I have Bowers, I'm open to it.
Where's kind of your line? Who's the last viable tight end for you in a 3 tight end build?
The last viable? I mean, I'm taking these rookies, so I'm mixing in I don't mind a 20th round Mason Taylor. Yeah.
Arroyo. Gotcha.
Arroyo. Yeah, those dudes. I haven't really drafted Helm or Ferguson, but I think Arroyo and Taylor are really good bets for day 2 capital and kind of intriguing profiles. Mason Taylor's a very solid, kind of does everything well. will play like traditional wide tight end. You don't got to worry about it in terms of like, oh, well, they know how to use him. Like he's a regular tight end. Arroyo is specifically getting buzzed because of his route running. The production's not there. It's like really just a bet on traits. But like, if the traits are route running, I'm interested in that at tight end. And he, especially if he's a second round pick, and he's free, he's completely free. So there's not really a line for me as far as the tight end 20th round.
I am going to indulge this question because I was just quickly scanning through the Underdog ADP rankings and saw this fella's name for the very first time. So thoughts on Oronde Gadsden?
He's like a hybrid wide receiver tight end. I know I think Davis really likes him. I haven't heard like anything about him as from like, traditional NFL evaluators about him as like a tight end. And so I think he's probably just like a fantasy name right now. Like maybe like late day 3 kind of pick that is like depth. Like there's some real Zach Kuntz potential with this guy. Yeah. Or who's the guy that I think the Rams took in like the day 3 that was like incredibly athletic. I think he's a tweener.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on his name, but yeah.
Yeah. If the NFL, like, I'm happy to change my mind on this guy because he's like a big wide receiver with tight end eligibility.
Yeah.
So if it looks like he would have a role, but right now I'm assuming he's day 3. He's like a kind of a big day 3 wide receiver, not a ton of interest. I would note there was a comment about Kayshon Boutte in the chat, and if you want to talk about a guy who like still probably has a role next year and is free, I haven't really been drafting him, but along the same lines of, drafting like a Keon Coleman, like cheap Keon Coleman. It's this dude. He's like their X. He can't separate at all, but I think a much better bet than Polk to have a role next year.
Has this podcast come out? Historical Anomaly says, curious if you've changed your thinking on any player after talking to Eric Froton.
I haven't done the podcast. We had Froton got busy, so
okay.
We and then I got busy this week, so it's looking like I'm actually gonna text him today and see if we can get it hammered out. But hopefully early next week we'll record the pod. I have changed my opinions on some guys after talking with him because he called me to see if I could be an alternate for their softball team, and I said yes, and then asked him, and then I asked him for about an hour and 20 minutes about college players he likes. So that's
sounds like instead of scheduling the podcast, you should have just turned on the cameras right then.
Yeah. So I have changed my opinion, and just not publicly yet.
There you go. So we were flashing some of the leg up ranks. I had those loaded in when I drafted on Best Ball Breakfast on Monday. A great way to get reoriented to the player pool if you were like me and were dragging your toes into or dragging your feet into dipping your toes into the 2025 drafting there. Anything else people should look for here on leg up in the coming days, Pat?
Not in like the coming days, but I'm working right now on my rookie profiles, and I've got the quarterback one in a really good place. Got some exciting stuff there. I'm working on some charts. ChatGPT is I just am telling it to make me the charts. It's not teaching me anything. I'm just going, hey, it's like if you want to change the color, here's where you do it. I'm like, great, can you do that though? There you go. So I'm making some charts that show kind of where I have this quarterback class, just based on all the inputs to my model that aren't draft capital, and then draft capital, and looking at like every quarterback going back since for a number of years, and then comparing it to this class too, and then looking at EPA per game for these guys, career and their peak season. Just put together that chart today. So a lot of fun stuff there, and diving deep on the profiles for fantasy. It's not a good quarterback class, but I did come away like a little bit more optimistic than I was, particularly on Cam Ward.
Nice.
Little optimistic on Jackson Dart. Although I heard Davis say he's his most drafted player, and I'm not sure Jackson Dart is a starter next year. So that does seem a little rash. But he could be good if he does start.
If there's one thing you can say about David Maddock, it's that he's not rash. As for me, the only show I have is tomorrow night on my channel. I'm doing DFS After Dark with Blender, Jordan Cooper. Haven't done a show with him in a long time, so that should be a fun time if you guys are YouTube members over there. And then I'll be back for Best Ball Breakfast on Monday, and then we'll have ADP chasing over here as well. Thank you to everyone hanging out in the chat. Subscribe if you guys aren't. Hop in the Discord. There's instructions to do so once you are in there. And otherwise, happy ship chasing. Good luck in your big board drafts. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time on Ship Chasing.